Hey, this is JP from Retro Game Rarities, and we're going to battle the JVC D-series and the Sony Trinitron. Since these two heavy hitters ran the table in the broadcast monitor industry, the consumer-grade TV products are no slouch for retro gaming. We tested both sets with S-Video through a Super Nintendo. Is the JVC D-series a viable alternative to the Trinitron? Let's check it out.
Retro Game Rarities.
Welcome to the CRT Showdown! Introducing the contenders, the Challenger JVC D-series, model number 27D501 from the year 2000, weighing in at 78 pounds and a screen size of 27 inches. It has one coax, one component, 2 S-Video, and 3 composite inputs with a stereo output, packed with a shadow mask screen and 700 horizontal lines. Now the reigning champion, Sony Trinitron KV series, model number KV27FV15 from the year 1999, weighing in at a hefty 114 pounds, screen size 27 inches. It has 3 coax, 3 S-Video, and 3 composite inputs with a stereo output, boasting an aperture grille screen, and those horizontal lines are unknown. The D-series comes out swinging with its sleek matte black finish, slightly curved glass, and shadow mask screen, flanked by 2 5-watt stereo speakers. Near the bottom of the screen is a set of composite inputs. This side of the case is traditional with sweeping lines and vents toward the rear. The back of the set has well laid out inputs and completes the sleek matte black look. However, the rear of the case feels thin and cheap, which causes slightly unbalanced forward weight. A good way to combat this is to modify a pair of anti-slip chair grips and place them underneath the set around 2 pieces of molding. This is an easy and inexpensive fix. The champ looks unfazed with its modern silver finish and form factor, flat glass and aperture grille screen, flanked by 2 5-watt stereo speakers. Near the bottom of the screen is a set of composite and S-Video inputs. Moving to the side, you notice a 2-tone case with its charcoal exterior. Near the bottom of the case on the side are handles for easy movement. The rear has well laid out inputs and a Sony logo so massive, it's unmistakable from any other set. Opposed to the JVC, this case is a tank and is rock solid. The JVC doesn't disappoint with its shadow mask screen. Images stay crisp and fairly straight with minimal bend at the center and only slight distortion near the edges due to the curvature of the glass. I feel this is a well-balanced level of distortion for any side-scrolling games, as the center of the screen stays consistent. If you want to configure the geometry, you'll need to access the service menu. The geometry on this set only required slight adjustments for overscan among the NES, Super Nintendo, and Genesis. However, there is one major caveat with this set. You cannot adjust the vertical position of the image in either the options menu or service menu. This can be bothersome if you want to get an averaged, centered screen among the consoles. We even contacted JVC about this. The only way to adjust the vertical position is by physically tweaking the tube inside. When properly configured via the options menu, the image is vibrant and sharp. The highlights are bright, the blacks are rich, and the text is sharp. Audio sounds better than most new flat screens, however it lacks rich bass. You can combat this with the external outputs in the back and connect your own setup with ease. The Trinitron rocks with its aperture grille and flat screen. The flat glass noticeably reduces glare compared to the curved glass of the JVC. Images are easily tuned for vibrancy and sharpness through the options menu. There is a plethora of configurations the Champ offers that the JVC doesn't. Highlights are bright, the blacks deep, and text sharp. Geometry on the set is where the issues start. Due to the flat glass, the images bend near the edge of the screen and compress at the center, almost as if looking at the inside of a cylinder. This is particularly noticeable in side-scrolling platformers, or even top-down shooters. I also found it impossible to get straight vertical and horizontal lines at the edge of the glass. This is where the service menu comes in. Accessing the service menu, I was able to slightly stretch the image in the vertical and horizontal axis to push the edge of it into the overscan area. This hides some of the flaws, but you will crop a very minor amount of the game out. You can also tweak the trap and pin as needed, which is also what we had to do. However, all of this will not change the center distortion. That's just something you have to live with. Audio is superior to the JVC. The bass is full and the mid's rich. You can always boost performance with the rear outputs as well. What you're seeing now is a side-by-side of the D-series and Trinitron. The picture is pretty equal. You may see some moire and minor blur in the clips from filming the CRT. Here you can see the JVC's curved glass and bending near the sides, but it maintains straight lines through the center of the screen. Here you can see the Trinitron compressing in the center and its horizontal bowing. So my final thoughts on the sets. The design, the Sony Trinitron screams late 90s, early 2000s with its silver finish. It's a little dated in my opinion. You can definitely tell when those sets were made. I honestly prefer the matte black of the JVC, but man, the structure and build quality of the Sony, that thing is a tank. It is rock solid. You saw in the videos, I was able to kind of push the back of the JVC in a little bit with my fingers and the back plastic was moving. It was also not nearly as rocky as the JVC. The Trinitron, it was solid. You couldn't, if you don't want this to fall on anybody, any cats, children, rats, ferrets, whatever you have, The Sony is way more stable when it comes that way. Also on the Trinitron, it depends on what model it is. They come with a variety of inputs as well, and all the way up to the higher models, they have built-in subwoofers as well. You know, so I mean, this model in particular didn't have the component, but a lot of other Trinitrons will. The design of the JVC, I personally like the matte black finish. It fits with a multiple monitor setup if you have a big game room and you want all your gear to match, because a lot of the flat screens now, they don't have that silver finish on them. You know, they have a bezel of either black or like barely any bezel at all, but it's usually black. So that, you know, you can get all your monitors and match that way. Another big plus on the JVC is that it's fairly easy to move at 78 pounds versus the 114 pounds of the Trinitron. It's honestly not a huge difference in weight, but the bulk of the Trinitron set is kind of a pain unless you have a larger arm span in order to get your arms around it. It's just kind of difficult to move around. The JVC, not so much, and you can definitely feel it in the weight difference. Moving on to distortion. Both sets have their own distortion levels, pros and cons. The Trinitron, it has wavy lines all around the glass. What's nice about the glass though is it's not very glary, so you don't have to worry about that. The biggest problem that I had with it was that it compresses in the middle and kind of bows also. So like you saw in the Super Mario footage, you know, some of the bricks and all the stuff in the middle of the screen kind of bow up and then they get smushed a little bit inside, like I said before, kind of looking at the middle of a cylinder. The distortion of the JVC, on the other hand, has heavy bending on the left and right side, and then the top and bottom kind of bow a little bit, but it really maintains that straight horizontal line through the center of the screen. So when you're, as you can see on the Super Mario game, when you're scrolling to the right and smashing those blocks, everything was pretty straight there. That's some, you know, the outside of the screen, minor distortion that I can live with. I grew up with that style of set. That's the classic CRT look. So, you know, it's also nostalgic for me as well. So for the picture, I mean, this is what everybody's looking for. Is the Trinitron better than the JVC D-series, or is the D-series better, or what? I think these are, you cannot fail with either of these sets. Pick either one of these up. You know, you can find these on Craigslist for free. I wouldn't go buying televisions. I wouldn't go buying CRT TVs, because now I believe they're like $25 to recycle when these things eventually die. But they are tanks anyway. But the picture on these are both sharp. They have fantastic saturation. I would recommend either of these. The JVC D-series is definitely a viable alternative to the Trinitron. The only little bit of an edge that I've seen on the Trinitron was that on high contrast situations, such as white text on a dark background, the white text was much sharper since the color didn't bloom because of the aperture grill versus the shadow mask. But that's you know, that's personal preference again. I enjoy the color bloom from the curved glass and the shadow mask versus the aperture grill. However, the sharpness and crispness and brightness of the Trinitron, the picture is exquisite as well. So you cannot go wrong with either of these sets. So if you enjoyed this video, hit like, hit subscribe. We're on all the major socials. Again, I'm JP from Retro Game Rarities. Thanks for watching.